Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us today on this special occasion of JANMASTMI. Today we'll be studying Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, Chapter 15, Lord Krishna's description of mystic yoga perfections. Happy JANMASTMI to all. It is today in Western world, and then on Wednesday it's going to be in India and the Eastern world, the eastern part of the world. Please join us for the Madhav prayers. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Krishna Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anand Kori Vaishnav ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bo.
Please join us for Mangalacharan prayers. Together.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiryet. Shratam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Sahasratam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Nashtiki.
Hare Krishna. Please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, Chapter 15, Lord Krishna's description of the mystic yoga perfections. Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Jitendriyasya Yuktasya
Jitendriyasya Yuktasya
Jita Shwasasya Yoginaha
Jita Shwasasya Yogina Mai Dharayatascheta
Upatishtanti Siddhayaha.
Upatishtanti Siddhaya.
Please.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Jitendriyasya Yuktasya
Jitendriyasya Yuktasya
Jita Shwasasya Yogina
Jita Shwasasya Yoginaha
Mai Dharayatascheta
Mai Dharayatascheta
Uptishtanti Siddhaya.
Upatishtanti Siddhayaha. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace S.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Uddhav, the mystic perfections of yoga are acquired by a yogi who has conquered his senses, steadied his mind, conquered the breathing process and fixed his mind on me. Purport. There are 8 primary mystic perfections such as Anima Siddhi and 10 secondary perfections. In this 15th chapter, Lord Krishna will explain that such mystic perfections are actually impediments to the development of Krishna consciousness, and that therefore one should not desire them. Hare Krishna. Please join us in invoking the blessings of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Happy Janmashtami to all. Dear devotees, today is a very auspicious day, and today is a day where we should be constantly engaging in devotional service. So many times when people hear in Bhagavad Gita Lord Krishna elaborately describing Ashtanga Yoga system. And also in this chapter, Lord is describing Ashtanga Yoga system, but He Himself clearly states that these mystic perfections are actually an impediment in our path to attain love of Godhead. So, today the important question that comes is, which of the two is more attractive? Mystic perfection or Bhakti Yoga? And this can be given right from here. So which of the two would you choose today? On this side you see mystic perfection, on here you see Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Shyam Sundar form, waiting to just steal away our mind in his, eternal love, blissful, and he is also Yogeshwara. So do we want to satisfy our senses with the mystic perfections, or do we want to satisfy the master of the senses, Lord Rishikesha? Those are the important questions that we should be answering today. So a yogi with mystic perfection can identify the destination where he wants to go. Yet at the same time, because these mystic perfections, the main 8 of them, even though coming from Lord Krishna, Acharyas explain that they are lower. The impact is lower. So, when people are looking for these mystic perfections like Anima, Mahima, Laghima and so forth, when they are directed to attain and keeping one self in the center, so if we keep us in the center, trying to attain mystic perfection, then that would not be the true perfection. That will be flickering, temporary in nature, and will be causing distress and impediments in our path to approach Lord Shri Krishna. While simply by chanting a holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, we can, with an open heart, churning our heart with this prayer, can pray to Lord Shiv, Shri Srimati Radharani and Lord Shri Krishna, our Supreme Father, to engage us in this service, because by such engagement we will get purified and our heart will be churned with all its weeds gone, and will be churned in that sweet butter form, ready for Lord Krishna to steal it away as Makhanchor. He is Murlidhar. And if you pay attention, when Lord Krishna plays his flute, it is such a nice description given in Srimad Bhagavatam, that when he would play his flute, sometimes people ask, why is Lord Krishna carrying the peacock feather on his head? So there is a very beautiful pastimes where Lord Krishna playing on his flute, and he has this Shyam Sundar form, right? The bluish dark form, just like the rainy clouds. And his garments, they are Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, they are yellow garments, yellow silk. So they appear like lightning on the clouds. And his garland is, moving as he's playing and dancing to and fro. So that appears like the ray of birds, going together, So the flock of birds are flying. And when he is playing his flute, all the moving things, they become stationary. And all the non-moving things, they start swaying. So when the calves and the cows, they are eating the grass, they would just hear the music of the flute when Lord Krishna is playing. And they would forget about external consciousness. They would even forget about the grass that is half chewed in their mouth, and they would just be stationary, just like in a picture. The birds would go to the branches and they would become stationary. And birds have been, Acharyas explain that these birds who like to, always chirp. So that is like the great commentators who are always speaking philosophies. But then when Lord Krishna starts speaking, all philosophies are silent. At that time, all these philosophers and great Brahmanas, they are just sitting quietly listening to Lord Krishna's sweet pastimes. And the peacocks, when they see a rainy cloud, they start dancing, right? So when they see Lord Shri Krishna playing on his flute, which appears like a thundering of the clouds, the music of the flute is so melodious to the ears of the peacocks. And the form of the Lord in, rainy cloud color, as well as his garments like lightning. They feel that the monsoon clouds are here and they are about to rain. And they're feeling this transcendental rays they are immersed in, so they start dancing. They start dancing with the peacock feathers raised high. And as they are dancing, they're giving joy to everyone. So the only living being who are in pure consciousness here are the peacocks, because they are constantly looking with that love, with that affection. And it is very nicely described by the Acharyas, and His Holiness Rajnath Maharaj also describes in his lecture that when you go to see a show, right, you buy a ticket to get an entrance and to be able to see the show. And after this beautiful dancing at the music of Lord Shri Krishna, these peacocks are wondering what kind of offering can they make. So the king of the peacock, he realizes that there is an offering he can make. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhakta prayachati tadaham bhakto pratam ashnami prayatatmana. If one offers with me love and devotion, one offers what? Patra, leaf, pushpa, flowers, phal, fruits, toyam, little water, then I will accept it, because it has been offered with love and devotion. So now the peacocks, they are wondering as what they can offer. They don't have flowers, they don't have fruits, but yes, they look at it in this whole scenario where Lord is appearing like this rainy cloud, his garments as this lightning on the clouds, and then the music of the Vamshi, Venu, again, there are two different ones. So again, that is like the thundering of the clouds. What is missing? The Indradhanush, the rainbow is missing. So they decide that they would offer their peacock feathers, which are like an offering of leaf, but it has the 7 colors beautifully manifested by the mercy of the Lordship. So the king of the peacock, he simply offers Lord Shri Krishna, like a leaf is offered, his peacock feather and his own tears of love, that love of Godhead, that joy, the transcendental bliss the peacock is feeling. He's offering that. So Lord Krishna is so touched by the love of his devotees that he picks up that feather and puts it on his turban, so on his crown. So in this manner, Lord is glorifying that even an offering like this, of a peacock feather, I accept it because it has been offered with love, with devotion. So we have to understand this, that this is a relationship of love. This is not a trade. This is beyond the understanding of people who are engaging in various kind of karma kand activities, jnana kand activities, and so forth. This is an offering of love from a devotee to the Supreme Lord, to the Supreme Master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And so when we hear, sometimes people ask that Srila Prabhupada, he always started his classes with Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Why did he do that? Because when we sing Jai Radha Madhav prayers, we are reminded of Lord Shri Krishna's beautiful form, right? Madhav, he is the husband of the goddess of fortune. So people who are running after Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, well, they are spending their time unnecessarily, while he is the husband of the goddess of fortune who is constantly serving his lotus feet. So Lord Shri Krishna, and he's so magnanimous, Kunja Bihari, and he resides in the Kunjas, in the 12 forests. He is the proprietor of the 12 forests at Vrindavan, the Vraj Mandala. And Gopi Jana Vallabh, and he is the master of all the gopis. So as we sing Jai Radha Madhav prayers, Vrindavan manifests all around us. So sometimes mystic yogis want to go quickly to other places with the speed of light. But by singing these prayers, Srila Prabhupada taught us how to bring Vrindavan into our very home, into our very heart, into our very being. And being surrounded by Vrindavan, in the association of Vrindavan Vasis, reflecting on their mood, we can attain perfection in this very life. So easy is Krishna consciousness. Why take such a heavy process, mystic perfection, which takes many, many years, and even when attained, can drive one into hellish conditions and can drive one to be offending to others and may not lead to the result that we are seeking, lead to the love of Godhead, the goal that we are seeking. There is a beautiful verse given by Sutta Goswami at Naimisharanya. He is reciting. So it's very important to understand. Lord Krishna is imparting the knowledge to Uddhav, who is lamenting that Lord is leaving for his supreme abode, but not taking me. So he is in this mood of separation. But Lord Krishna in the previous chapter said that I would like to purify all the material worlds with the lotus feet of my devotee. And what did he talk about Uddhav? He said that Lord Brahma is not as dear to me. Lord Shiva is not as dear to me. Goddess of fortune is not as dear to me. Even I myself is not as dear to me as you, Uddhav. So he is glorifying Uddhav being so dear to Lord that all these great personalities, including Lord himself, is not so dear to him. So Lord is Bhav Grahi Janadana. He is looking at the essence in our heart. And so our heart should be today completely, in these waves of devotion. We should be constantly in the nectar and the nectarian pastimes, remembering the sweet pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. Yashomati Nandana Braja Baranagar Gokula Ranjana Kanha. Acharyas have given us such beautiful prayers. Now we have to also understand that these Acharyas, some of them were gopis, some of them were manjaris. They are transcendental beings coming to show us path as how to love Lord Shri Krishna. And Lord Shri Krishna himself came as Golden Avatar, as Gauranga Mahaprabhu, along with Lord Balaram as Nityananda Prabhu, along with Mahavishnu and Sadashiv combined in the form of Advaita Acharya Thakur, and Radharani's manifestation as Gadadhar Pandit. They have come to take us back home. The three Vishnu Tattva incarnation, one internal potency, Radharani's incarnation, and Shiva's is Narad's incarnation. So they have come as Panch Tattva to take us away back home, back to Godhead. And by calling out to the Lordship with love, we can actually understand that everything is an expansion of Lord Shri Krishna, and he can bring, just like he brought his supreme abode to Vrindavan and Bhaum of Vrindavan. Similarly, when we are constantly meditating on him, constantly singing his glories, constantly discussing his pastimes, he brings himself with all his associates and all his dham, right? The pilgrimage Vrindavan in our hearts, filling us with this sweet feeling of transcendental bliss. So again, we have to understand this. So this chapter we'll be discussing describes 8 primary incarnations and 10 secondary incarnations, along with 5 other perfections that are developed by fixing one's mind in yoga at the different features of Lord Shri Krishna. And all these features were the features that are manifested in this material world. While Lord Shri Krishna says that the 8 mystic perfections, Anima, Laghima, Mahima and so forth, they are actually coming, they are under his control because he is Yogeshwar. He is the master of all the yogis, Ishvara of all the yogis, the supreme controller of all the yogis. And so he is the supreme master of all the yogic perfections. These are his potencies. And we want, yogic perfections, then we should think about this. Why do we want the wealth of the Father, or do we want our Father, the love of the Father? That's the choice we have to make. And similarly, today the question is, which of these 2 choices will you make? The yogic perfection or the love of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna himself? Who do you want to win over? The choice is ours. There's a beautiful verse that's given that describes the essence in this material world when we are in this conditioned life, receiving this body. and being conditioned by the three modes of material nature, what is the process that we should be looking for? What is our endeavor we should be engaging in? Tasyeva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadaha tallabhyate dukhvadanyataha sukham kalena sarvatra gabhira ramhasha. Persons who are actually intelligent, so ask yourself, are you intelligent? Are you smart? Right? And persons who are philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, only for that goal which cannot be obtained even by wandering from the supreme, the topmost planet in this material world, Brahmalok, Satyalok, down to the lowest planet, Patal Lok. As far as happiness is concerned, that's derived from the sense enjoyment, then that will come by its own accord in due course of time, just like the miseries come, the distress comes by its own course, even when we do not desire them. So one has to understand, one has to realize that this material world, if we just change our perspective, because when we say material world, then the person looking at this world is thinking that this is distinct, it's different from Lord Shri Krishna, and it's meant for self-enjoyment. The same world, when changing the view, the lens, right, Shastra Chakshush, by the vision of the scriptures, when looks at this world, understanding that this is a manifested expansion of Lord Krishna's external potency. Devi Haisha Gudamai Mama Maya Duratyaya. So Lord Krishna says that this material energy of mine, so again he is the Lord of the material energy, is very difficult to overcome. Mamevye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. But one who surrenders unto me, one who engages in loving devotional service to me, can easily cross over it. Because for such a person, this material ocean, the ocean of essence, turns into the size of a calf's hoof print. And it's very easy to cross over it. So now let's discuss the various mystic perfections. And there is a personality who had these mystic perfections before he met the Lordship. Yet at the same time, it caused for a lot of anxiety. It was the cause of a lot of anxiety to this personality as well as others around him. And who am I talking about? Think about it. Write in the comments, who do you think are we going to discuss? Who had this great mystic perfections like Anima, Mahima, Laghima, Prapti, Prakamya, Vashita, Kamavasita. And of course, free of the 6 waves, and can hear a distant speech, to ability to hear someone speaking at a great distance, because they can, speaking in the sky, and the sky carries it. Shabdake Parusham Nishu, Lord Shri Krishna is revealing in Bhagavad Gita that the voice, the sound is carried in the ether, sky, not in air, like the scientists say. Again, scientists say many things, but in the scriptures, Acharyas have already explained for thousands of years before how everything is manifested in this material world. Just like we take the example of movements of this earth. Science, we heard that there are 2 movements of the earth. But in Shastras, there are 3 movements of the earth. First is revolving around the sun. It's rotating on its axis. That's the second one. And then its axis is tilted by 8 degrees. And that is also rotating around the perpendicular to a sun, that particular axis, which takes 83,500 years. Now scientists don't know this because they have not observed it. They had not lived 83,700 years to realize this movement. Right? In the current age, the maximum life is more like 100 years as given in the Shastras. So we have to understand. And who is the personality we are talking about? We're talking about none other than Bajrangbali, Hanumanji. Yes, as he was born as a son of Vayu, right? Pavanaputra Hanuman, the Ki Jai. He had all his mystic perfections. And when he was playing with his friends, when he was young, they were
eating apple. So he desired to eat apple. And he looked at the sun. What does he see? He thinks that this is a great, very nice apple for me. And using his mystic perfection, he starts to fly towards the sun. And what does he do? He actually puts the sun, he engulfs the sun in his mouth. And the whole universe is in darkness. And at that time, Indra and the other demigods, they came to know, and Indra used which weapon to, make Hanumanji give up the sun? He used his Vajra, and that affected Hanumanji. So again, it is very important that when we are seeking our sense gratification, he is teaching by his example, Pavan Putra Hanuman, that when we are using these mystic perfections to fulfill our desire, instead of fulfilling Lord's desire, then they will be the cause of anxiety, not just for us, but for everyone around us. And we will be acting in the childish mentality like Lord Balaram or Lord Hanuman. So when we are willing to sacrifice for the pleasure of Krishna, he will take birth from our hearts in most beautiful divine form as Makhanchor, as Nandalala, as Yashomati Nandana, as Devaki Nandana, as Vasudev, Lord Vasudev. So again, Vasudev is the name of the father, husband of Devaki, and Lord Vasudev is another name for Krishna, who Gopi Pranadhana Madana Manohar Kaliya Damana Vidhana Yashomati Nandana Brajabar Nagar Gokula Ranjana Kanha. So again, he is eradicating all kind of disturbances, from Vraj, the residents of Vraj. And he is at the same time stealing away their hearts in the form of butter, right? He is also known as butter thief, Makhanchor. And the elderly gopis, when they would describe this pastime to Mother Yashoda, that your Kanha, he is very nutcut, he is very naughty. And he, even though we, put our pots really high that he cannot reach, and it's in a dark room, and this butter we have actually prepared, they are saying, for our husbands and to be able to take out, right? Because as mercantile people, they were preparing this butter, and but at the same time, in our heart of hearts, they were wishing that Lord would come, so that they get to complain about him. They get to, sometimes even catch him and being, remind him of his naughty feature. So they are keeping this, but they are telling Yashoda Mai that your Kanha, when he goes into the dark room, it seems like the ornaments that he's wearing, from the glow of that ornaments, the whole room is enlightened. And we understand as devotees that Brahman effulgence is actually coming from the toes of Lord Shri Krishna. So he is the cause of Brahman. And so when he enters, Krishna Suri Sama Maya Hai Andhakara. So when he enters a dark room, how can there be any darkness? It will all be well lit. And he would take up, and it would not be just, he would just eat it. First, he would feed it to the monkeys, they are describing. So he would feed it to the monkeys because when he appeared as Lord Ramchandra, Vanar Sena, the army of the monkeys, enabled him to win over the demons. So that is where the glories of Hanumanji starts. And this Nam Kirtan is so beautiful, it's so enlivening. So let's... Okay. And of course, in this Nam Kirtan, also is glorified is his Hari Nam. Amala Hari Nama Miya Vilasa, Amala Hari Nama Miya Vilasa, Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Boro, Vamshivadana Suvasa, Braja Jana Palana Surakula Nashana, Braja Jana Palana Surakula Nashana, Nanda Godhana Rakhovala, Nanda Godhana Rakhovala, Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara, Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara, Sundarananda Gopala, Sundarananda Gopala. So he is such a Sundarananda Gopala. He is so beautiful that he is stealing away the hearts of all the Vrajvasis. And so, after feeding the monkeys, he would give it to the cowherd boys, he would eat it himself, and then he would break the pot. He is so naughty. So he is completely stealing away our heart, not leaving anything behind. And it is meant only for his purpose. He doesn't want, there is no use for the butter of our heart. Our heart is butter, sweet butters, nicely churned for, to attain his love, to be of any other use than his use. Just like Hanumanji shows, that when he is reminded, he reaches along with the other Vanaras and Jambavan. And Angad says, I can cross over, but once I reach Lanka, I do not have strength to come back. And Jambavan says, well, when Lord Vamandev expanded in the form of Trivikrama, then I could actually circumambulate him. I could go around and worship him by taking, parikrama of Trivikrama, Lord Trivikrama. But now I am old, because being cursed by Meru, he had become old. So he says, I cannot do this. But I know one personality who has this potency. And who's this personality? None other than Hanuman. So if he is reminded of his Siddhis, that he has all these Ashta Siddhis, then he will be able to cross over. And that is where the perfection of mystic yoga comes in, where Lord Hanuman uses his mystic yogic powers, the perfections that he had attained. Even as a child, he is using it. So the first one is, these are the first 8 other primary ones who are under the shelter of Lord Vishnu. First is anima, the ability to become smaller than the smallest. And how does it, how can one attain it? One can attain it by meditating on the atomic form pervading all subtle elements. So Shirodakshai Vishnu is expanding and is entering into the hearts of not just all living entities, but also in the nucleus of all the atoms and even the spaces between the atoms. So he is all pervading. And Hanuman, using this anima potency to become smaller than the smallest, is able to enter Lanka, right? And also Sursa, the water serpent, she appeared. And Hanumanji first showed his magnanimous form, Mahima Siddhi, right? To become larger than the largest. And she was increasing her size. She said that you have to go in through my mouth, otherwise, you cannot leave. And so when he became larger than the largest, she was also increasing her size, bigger and bigger. And then he immediately, being very expert, he took the anima form, very small form, and went into her mouth and came back and said, Mother, I have taken care of your desire. And so he was able to proceed on his journey. So we may feel many roadblocks, many impediments, but by taking shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, we can easily cross over all the impediments. Srila Prabhupada says that we should chant minimum 16 rounds daily. Only then we will have his protection. And on special occasions like Janmashtami and Gaur Purnima and other occasions, Ekadashis and so forth, we should chant minimum of 25 rounds. So the minimum is given. Maximum is unlimited. You can spend the whole day chanting about the name, form, activities, pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna and doing japa. And so here, Lagima is the third potency, becoming lighter than the lightest. So as if existing within everything and realizing time as, time I am, Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, destroyer of all things, subduer of all things. So again, when people are in material consciousness thinking of different sense objects for sense enjoyment, then they face time. At the end of their time, they see Lord in Kala Roop. And so they are constantly tormented in fear. While devotees, they understand that that is just a phase where Lord even takes care of us. So it's like, for a devotee, it's like thundering and lightning. So the pain that comes from death is like thundering. And the enlightenment going from material body consciousness to spiritual consciousness is like lightning. So which of the two occurs first? Lightning. Thundering happens afterwards. So as we heard, when Narad Muni as a maidservant boy, when he gave up his body, it was thundering and lightning. So they appearing simultaneously, but he did not feel any pain. Dhruv Maharaj, he used his feet to step over the head of the death to be able to climb over to Vishnu Viman, where Nanda Sunanda had come to take him back home, back to Godhead. And he went to Dhruvlok, where Lord resides in the milk ocean. So again, that's another glory. We're talking about the North Star or the Pole Star, which stays even when Satyalok is destroyed at the end of Lord Brahma's day. So, and then Prapti is the proprietor of senses of all living entities in goodness. That is when one meditates in this form, attains this perfection called Prapti, and one can acquire anything that one desires. Prakamya is considered an excellent perfection, and one can experience any enjoyable object. Yet at the same time, how does one gain it? It's by meditating on the super soul that manifests chain of fruitive activities beyond perception. So this material world is constantly engagement of living entities and being conditioned in fruitive activities. And when one can understand that Lord is the supreme proprietor of the senses as Hrishikesha, one can attain this as super soul. And Ishita is controlling, able to manipulate sub-potencies of material energy, can be attained by meditating on Vishnu, the super soul, the prime mover and supreme lord of the external energy. Now, who had this perfection? Durvasa Muni had this perfection. And he used it on Amrish Maharaj when he cursed, because he used his energy, Ishita controlling power, this perfection on Amrish Maharaj he couldn't control, so he cursed Amrish Maharaj. And this caused great lamentation for him, because Sudarshan, who was being held to guard Amrish Maharaj, came into existence, and then he was always existing. He came in action, so he entered and destroyed the demon that was produced by the hair of Durvasa Muni, Jatai of Durvasa Muni. And then Sudarshan also means the one that gives auspicious vision. Sudarshan, auspicious vision. So he is known not to just destroy the impediment, also the root cause of impediment. Who was the root cause in this case? Durvasa Muni himself. So he chased Durvasa Muni, and Durvasa Muni, seeing Sudarshan coming to kill him, had to run all over all the heavenly planets, and he was using all these mystic perfections to be able to travel with the speed of mind, to be able to go to different abodes and even enter Vaikuntha. And he, everywhere he went, Indra, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, they could not help. When he went to Lord Vishnu says, I am controlled by my devotee. So you have to take shelter of Amrish Maharaj. And when he came back to Amrish Maharaj, at that time Amrish Maharaj was still fasting, he had not broken his fast. So he immediately bowed down at the lotus feet of Amrish Maharaj, the devotee of Lord Shri Krishna. And at that time Amrish Maharaj requested Sudarshan to forgive Durvasa Muni. So even Sudarshan listens to the devotees of Lord Shri Krishna. Just like Namacharya Haridas Thakur. He was being beaten in 24 marketplaces because he could not give up the holy name. And he was chanting the holy name on these constables. They were beating him on Kaji's order. And at that time, Lord had sent Sudarshan Chakra to destroy all these constables. But Namacharya had prayed to Sudarshan, so Sudarshan came back helpless. And then when Lord asked him, why didn't you kill those people who were beating Haridas Thakur? He said, what can I say? Your devotee is praying that let them be. And at that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, understanding the mood of his devotee, he said that I could not bear any pain on the back of Haridas Thakur. So I covered his back, and he showed his back. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on his back had these lashings from the beating that was given to Haridas Thakur. And when asked, Haridas Thakur said, well, how can I give up this holy name? Because this holy name never gives up on me. So he would chant, how many times? 3 lakhs, 64 times 3, 192 rounds of Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this chanting of the holy name is translated as sound vibration, Srila Prabhupada explains, which is coming from the Supreme Abode, and it's a prayer of a cry of a baby, just like of a living entity. As a baby, we are crying for the love of our mother, our Supreme Father, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan. And we are hoping that they would hear our cry and bestow their mercy on us. So it is a privilege to be able to engage in devotional service, not a right. So that's also very important. We have this minute freedom, but we misuse it. Yet today is a day, right? Madhav Tithi is Bhakti Janani. And today is the appearance day of Lord Madhav, Lord Krishna. Yashoda Nandana, Nandanandana, who is so beautiful, who is so wonderful. And so, Ishita controlling perfection does not enable us. Vashita, to be able to get the effect due to the 4th factor. What are the 3 other factors? The modes of material nature. The 4th factor is Lord Narayan, as the 4th factor is beyond the 3 modes of material energy, and this perfection is received by the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Kama Vasayita, perfection is ability to obtain anything one desires, which can fulfill happiness of all desires. And by pure mind, when one meditates on Lord Shri Krishna in his impersonal Brahman effulgence form, one can attain this perfection. The ability, now the 7th one is free of 6 waves. One can free oneself of the 6 waves. What are these 6 waves? Hunger, thirst, decay, death, grief, and illusion. And this can be attained by meditating on this Lord Krishna as the upholder of religious principles, right? And perfection of purity and Lord of Shvetadvip. So again, Shvetadvip is ocean milk, Shirodakshai Vishnu. And the 8th perfection is one can hear speech at a distant place, Shabdakhe, we talked about, that the sound is carried in ether, the sky. So this extraordinary sound vibration occurring within Lord Shri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as personified sky. So Lord is expanding, his potency is expanding. And he says that these 8 energies, so he actually lists the material elements as his expanded energies. And the total life here, as Lord, further his potency is expanding. When one is meditating on this, they can attain perfection and perceive the speaking in the sky at a great distance. And then there are 8 secondary perfections. Yet at the same time, we have to meditate on Lord Shri Krishna because he is Nanda Kumar. And we sing his glorification, right? In his glorification, we sing various prayers given by Acharyas. Vande Krishna Nanda Kumara, Vande Krishna Nanda Kumara, Nanda Kumara Madana Gopala, Nanda Kumara Madana Gopala, Madan Gopala Mohana Rupa, Madana Gopala Mohana Rupa, Mohana Rupa Nanda Kumara, Mohana Rupa Nanda Kumara, Jaya Jaya Deva Hari, Jaya Jaya Deva Hari, Govind Hari Gopal Hari Shri Krishna Hari Shri Ram Hari Jaya Jaya Deva Hari Jaya Jaya Deva Hari. And so he will take away, like Hari, one who takes away all kind of miseries, all kind of tribulations that we face, all kind of impediments, just by taking shelter at his lotus feet. So even though when a child, a young boy is trying to cross a road full with traffic, he would be so fearful. But when he is holding his father's hand, he is fully confident. Srila Prabhupada gave this example, that a child holding his father's hand is fully confident and relying on his father and confidently cross over the road. So similarly, we can cross over this ocean of nations. And similarly, you can continue to read that various mystic perfections. And these mystic perfections have been also described by Lord Shri Krishna that can be attained by good birth, like in Siddhalok, people take birth and they are able to attain various Siddhis. Yet at the same time, devotion service is devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is rare. Even the birds get this mystic perfection to be able to fly in the sky because of their birth. The fishes get their mystic perfection to be able to swim in water. When we are thrown in water, we will be struggling to survive. But fish, they enjoy the relish. Yet at the same time, even though it appears like this material world, but a devotee is constantly in the spiritual world, in the spiritual realm, enjoying completely in transcendental bliss, constantly in ecstasy, singing the glories of Lord Shri Krishna. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavana Shri Govinda Gopinath Madhagiri Govardhana Kalindi Jamuna Jaya Jaya Mahavana. And when Lord comes, He doesn't come alone. He brings His dham with Him, His associates with Him, all His expansions and all His potencies in Him. That's why when Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he reveals that in this holy name, all the potencies of the Supreme Personality are given. He is narrating this. Just by taking to the chanting of the holy name, we can attain the supreme perfection in this very life. Someone can also attain perfection, this mystic yogic perfections through herbs, like mystic state inducing herbs. And some can even attain these mystic perfections by performing austerities, like Hiranyakashipu, by meditating. This he was able to attain, but what was the use? Because he was seeking sense gratification. And thus he was vanquished by Lord Shri Krishna, while his son Prahlad is glorified as one of the Mahajanas. Swayambhu Narado Shambhu Kumaro Kapilo Manhu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Bali Vaya Sakirvayam. So the 12 Mahajanas are being narrated by who? By Yamraj himself, Dhamraj himself. He is identifying, and Prahlad Maharaj's name is there. And by mantras like Shukracharya, when he makes the chants and he gives various kind of siddhis to the Daityas, the son of the descendants of Diti and Kashyapa Muni. They are able to attain various perfections, yet at the same time, Bali Maharaj is glorified in devotion as giving everything, Atma Nivedanam. So he is surrendering everything, not just what he possesses, but his very body in the service of Lord. And he buys Lord Vamandev, he purchases Lord Vamandev by this. This devotion he shows, this tolerance he shows. Taradapi shunichena tarorapi sahishnuna manina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Taradapi shunichena, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reveals in third verse of Shikshashtaka the secret as how we can, call out to the Lord, how we can pray. By thinking oneself more humble than the grass on the street, by being more tolerant than the tree, not expecting any respect from others, amanina, manadina, ready to give all respects to others. In this mood, with this attitude of gratitude, one can chant the holy name and engage in devotional service, Sadahari, forever, for eternity. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, happy Janmashtami to you all. And please engage in devotional service and sing the glories of Makancho, the butter thief, who will come and steal the sweet butter of our heart and take us home by invoking this love of Godhead. And as we have discussed so many times, the 5 most potent forms of devotional service, reading Srimad Bhagavatam is one of them. Just even a novice can experience the love of Godhead when reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Chanting of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Deity worship is the 3rd one. 4th is by residing at a dham. So if you have Srimad Bhagavatam deities at your home and you're chanting, your home becomes a dham because you are invoking the mercy of Lordship, and He is coming with His dham at your place to you instead of you wandering in the streets to reach various dhams. And 5th, most important of all, is devotee association. Sadhu Sangha, Sarv Shastakaya, Love Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarv Siddhis. So again, all scriptures say that by momentary association of a pure devotee, one can attain all kind of siddhis. So why spend our time frivolously in various activities, rather engage in devotional service in the association of devotees. Please join us for a little Harinam. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Madhav Tithi Janmashtami ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and once again, happy Janmashtami to you all. Have a Krishna blessed day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.